How would you feel about spending 2 months alone in a cave in the French Alps? That's months without seeing sunlight. What do you think would happen to your brain? And what do you think would happen to your sleep? Hey everyone, welcome back to Bear It In Mind. In this video, we're going to begin to explore biological rhythms as part of the biopsychology topic. Biological rhythms are repeated patterns of changes in the body that are regulated by an internal clock. In other words, there are processes in your body that happen again and again that are controlled by a clock inside you. There are 3 biological rhythms that we're going to explore in the next 2 videos: circadian, ultradian, and infradian. In this video, we will explore the circadian rhythm, including the effect of endogenous pacemakers and exogenous Zeitgebers. At the end of the video, there'll be some practice questions of what we cover so that you can check your understanding. A link below is a free resource that goes with this video. Circadian rhythms last for around 24 hours. The word circa is Latin for about, and diem is Latin for day, so it means about a day. An example of a circadian rhythm is the sleep-wake cycle. Our body has a rhythm where once a day we sleep for an extended period of time and then we wake for an extended period of time. All biological rhythms are controlled and maintained by 2 things: endogenous pacemakers and exogenous Zeitgebers. We need to explore the effect of endogenous pacemakers and exogenous Zeitgebers on the sleep-wake cycle. Endo is Greek for inside, and genus is Greek for producing. Endogenous pacemakers are internal body clocks that regulate our biological rhythms. So this means that inside you and me is a clock that decides when we fall asleep and when we wake up. Exo is Greek for outside, and Zeitgeber is German for time giver. Exogenous Zeitgebers are external cues that influence and reset our internal biological clocks. So, is there something inside your body that is controlling and maintaining your sleep-wake cycle? Is there an internal clock? Well, yes, there is. It's called the No, not quite, but it sounds like it. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN for short. The SCN is a tiny cluster of nerve cells located in the hypothalamus. The optic nerve transmits electrical impulses from your eyes to your brain. The place where your optic nerves cross is called the optic chiasm. The SCN is just above them, hence why it's called the supra, which means above, and chiasm means cross shape, where the optic nerves cross. So the SCN is above, supra, the chiasm, cross shape. Now let's apply this to the sleep-wake cycle. The SCN is thought to be the endogenous pacemaker for our sleep-wake cycle. In other words, the SCN is the internal clock that sets the timing of when we feel the need to sleep and when we wake. In fact, the SCN is thought to be the master clock. Now you may remember from the video on the endocrine system that the pineal gland in the brain secretes melatonin, a hormone that is important in helping us fall asleep. It's the SCN that regulates the pineal gland and thus our sleep. So what about exogenous Zeitgebers then, the external cues that influence our rhythms? Well, one of the most powerful external cues that influences our sleep-wake cycle is light.
Are you deaf? Put that light out!
In fact, the SCN, our internal clock, receives information about light through our eyes and the optic nerve, and believe it or not, the SCN can even detect light when our eyes are shut. When there is less light, the SCN stimulates the pineal gland to produce more melatonin, which helps us fall asleep. And when there is more light, melatonin production reduces to help us feel awake. Light is really important for our circadian rhythm because it adjusts our internal clock. The time of sunrise and sunset changes each day, and so our internal clock becomes out of sync. And light, especially early in the morning, helps to recalibrate our internal clock to the outside world. Let's now consider the research into the role of both endogenous pacemakers and exogenous Zeitgebers on our circadian rhythm, the sleep-wake cycle. Firstly, DeCoursey et al. In 2000 conducted research with chipmunks.
That's not singing, this is singing.
But this is not going to be so cute. A control group of 20 normal chipmunks with perfectly intact SENs were compared with an experimental group of 30 chipmunks who had their SENs destroyed. Each chipmunk was radio collared so that they could be tracked, and then they were released back into their natural habitat where they were observed for 80 days. What they found was that more chipmunks who had their SEN damaged were killed by weasels compared to the control group. The researchers suggested that the damage to the SEN affected the chipmunk's sleep-wake cycle. In other words, they didn't know when to sleep, and so this made them restless during the night and more vulnerable to the predator locating its prey. The research demonstrates the importance of the SEN in regulating our circadian rhythm, the sleep-wake cycle, because without it, we lose the rhythm. However, it could be argued that we should be cautious in the conclusions we draw from this study about the circadian rhythm because it's based on animal research. Perhaps the sleep-wake cycle and the particular biology involved in sleep in humans is rather different, and so the results from chipmunks may not generalize. Well, what about research with humans? How could we find out if we do have an internal biological clock that controls our sleep-wake cycle? This brings us to the research of Frenchman Michel Siffre, a man who in 1962 spent 2 months underground in caves in the French Alps without sunlight and without clocks. It was the Cold War, and we knew nothing about the human sleep cycle in outer space. Not only was there a competition between the US and Russia to put men into space, but France had also just begun its nuclear submarine program. French headquarters knew nothing about how best to organize the sleep cycle of submariners. NASA analyzed my first experiment in 1962 and put up the money to do sophisticated mathematical analysis. Spending this amount of time underground in caves obviously removed his exposure to natural light, the key exogenous Zeitgeber for our sleep-wake cycle. But he also wanted to see the effects of living without knowing what the time was. Whilst he was underground, he monitored his body's activity for a number of things, including when he slept. So, what happened to him? There were many discoveries from his research, some of which NASA were particularly interested in relation to memory loss. But for our purposes, what he found was that despite the absence of natural daylight, he maintained a regular sleep-wake cycle of around 25 hours. He woke up and went to sleep at regular fixed times. He also, unsurprisingly, lost track of time. I descended into the cave on July 16th and was planning to finish the experiment on September 14th. When my surface team notified me that the day had finally arrived, I thought that it was only August the 20th. I believed I still had another month to spend in the cave. The research of Siffre suggests a number of things. Firstly, we have an internal biological clock that controls our circadian rhythm, that controls when we sleep and when we wake. And secondly, it appears that our sleep-wake cycle is actually nearer to 25 hours rather than 24. And thirdly, it shows the need we have for exogenous Zeitgebers such as light to regulate our 24-hour sleep-wake cycle. In Siffre's own words, the important thing is that we prove that there was an internal clock independent of natural day-night cycle. Interestingly, during the subsequent experiments I did with other research subjects, all of the people in the caves showed cycles longer than 24 hours. There's way more to Siffre's research than we have time to cover in this video, so if you'd like to find out more about him and the other things that happened to him in the cave, then I've put some links in the description below for you. However, some research has raised questions about the research of Siffre's and others who have been studied in isolation. This is because of the role of artificial light. Research conducted by Czeisler et al. In 1999 had the telling title of Stability, Precision, and Near 24-Hour Period of the Human Circadian Pacemaker. They stated that previous studies on the human sleep-wake cycle had failed to take into account an important factor. It was understood that bright light acted as an exogenous Zeitgeber to the circadian rhythm, but it was widely believed that the human circadian pacemaker, the SEN, was not affected by ordinary indoor artificial light. Siffre had artificial light in his cave for those 2 months where he read books, studied, kept a diary and recorded his experiences. What Czeisler et al. Found was that when they controlled for artificial light, the natural cycle of the circadian rhythm was 24.18 hours, with very little drift from this, far closer to 24 hours than the 25 reported by others. This firstly shows how artificial light can be an exogenous Zeitgeber to our sleep-wake cycle, and secondly it undermines the findings of self-isolation studies like Siffre in terms of the length of their sleep-wake cycle, because they had artificial light which may have influenced and reset their circadian rhythm. Beyond the sleep-wake cycle, there are many other examples within the body of circadian rhythms, such as our body temperature, digestion, or when hormones are secreted. These are all affected by the time of day. Having an understanding of these circadian rhythms has had real-life practical application in the treatment of illnesses. This field of study is known as chronotherapeutics, chrono meaning time. It's the study of how timing affects drug treatments and other interventions. For example, in this study with cancer patients, they found that when in the day patients are given intravenous medication to kill cancerous cells can shape how effective the medication is and how toxic the side effects are. In other words, there appears to be an optimal time to deliver medication that helps fight the illness and limits the harm to the patient. Therefore, this shows the importance of understanding circadian rhythms and their impact on human life. If this video has got you all intrigued about the psychology of sleep, then you need to check the description below where I've linked to a list of books and podcasts where you can explore further. Next, we're going to finish our series in biopsychology by looking at the other 2 rhythms, ultradian and infradian, which is linked below for you. But now, it's time to check your understanding of what we've covered in this video. I'll present one question at a time. You can pause the video to answer it yourself first, and then press play again to reveal the answer. I hope you found this video helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.